The weight of solo parenting Devin Mitchell adjusted his baseball cap against the brilliant Saturday morning sun. Watching his 8-year-old daughter Ruby sprint toward the shoreline with unbridled enthusiasm, Harbor Point Beach stretched endlessly before them, a ribbon of golden sand meeting the crystal waters of Lake Michigan. These moments were precious, carved out from his demanding schedule as a senior software architect at Next Tech Solutions, a cutting-edge startup that consumed most of his waking hours. 3 years had passed since the divorce. 3 years of learning to braid hair through YouTube tutorials, mastering the delicate art of parent-teacher conferences alone, and discovering that grocery shopping with a child took twice as long as he ever imagined. The first year had been brutal, filled with microwave dinners and guilt that gnawed at him during every late-night coding session. But slowly, he and Ruby had found their rhythm, creating a small universe where just the two of them were enough. An afternoon of simple, joyous Ruby's laughter echoed across the beach as she chased retreating waves, her purple swimsuit bright against the sand. Devin spread their oversized beach blanket, carefully arranging their cooler sunscreen, and the stack of paperwork he probably should not have brought. Old habits died hard. His phone buzzed with a Slack notification from work, but he silenced it decisively. Today was about being present, about giving Ruby the undivided attention she deserved. The beach was moderately crowded with families enjoying the unseasonably warm September afternoon. Couples walked hand in hand along the water's edge. Elderly folks sat beneath umbrellas with thick novels, and children of all ages constructed elaborate sand kingdoms. Devin felt a familiar pang of loneliness watching the couples, wondering if he would ever find someone who understood the complicated reality of his life. Ruby returned, dripping and breathless. "Dad, can we build the biggest sand fortress ever?" she asked, her green eyes, so much like his own, sparkling with determination. She had inherited his stubbornness, along with his eye color, a combination that made parenting both challenging and deeply rewarding. The moment everything changed as Devin gathered their sand toys. His gaze swept across the beach, and his heart stopped. Walking along the water's edge, maybe 50 feet away, was Camila Reyes, his boss. His brilliant, intimidating, perpetually focused CEO who treated the office like a battlefield and expected nothing less than excellence from her team. But this version of Camila looked nothing like the woman who ran their Monday morning stand-ups with military precision. Her usually severe dark hair flowed loose past her shoulders, catching the sunlight. She wore a flowing beach cover-up over a swimsuit, and she was laughing, actually laughing, with a young man who shared her distinctive features. Her brother, Devin guessed. He quickly looked away, hoping she had not noticed him. The last thing he needed was to discuss the database optimization project on his day off. Ruby tugged at his arm. "Dad, you're staring. Who is that lady?" "Nobody, sweetheart. Just someone from work. Let's focus on our fortress." But curiosity betrayed him. He glanced up once more, just as a sudden gust of lake wind caught Camila's lightweight cover-up. The fabric billowed upward and sideways, and for one horrifying, eternal second, her cover-up lifted completely away from her torso. Before she could catch it, recognition and mortification time seemed to slow. Devin's eyes met Camila's across the distance. Her expression shifted from surprise to recognition, to something he could not quite identify. Shock perhaps, or anger, or mortification matching his own. He immediately looked down at the sand, his face burning hotter than the sun could account for, his heart hammered against his ribs. This was catastrophic. He had just accidentally seen his CEO in her most vulnerable moment, and she knew he had seen. What should he do? Pack up and leave? Pretend it never happened? His mind raced through increasingly absurd scenarios, each ending with him unemployed and Ruby asking why they had to move to a different city. "Dad, your ears are really red," Ruby observed, with the brutal honesty only children possessed. "Are you okay?" Before he could formulate a response, a shadow fell across their blanket. Devin looked up slowly, dreading what he would find. Camila Reyes stood before them, now securely wrapped in her cover-up, her expression unreadable behind designer sunglasses. His career flashed before his eyes, an unexpected connection, Devin Mitchell. What a surprise, Camilla said, her voice carrying that familiar authoritative tone that made senior developers check their code twice. I apologize, Ms. Reyes, Devon stammered, jumping to his feet so quickly he nearly tripped over the cooler. About what happened, I did not mean to look, it was completely accidental. And I am so incredibly sorry, Camille held up one hand, silencing his rambling. It is Camilla when we are not in the office. And beach cover-ups are notoriously unreliable in Lake Wind. Her voice softened slightly. Let us just forget it happened. Her attention shifted to Ruby, who was watching this exchange with open fascination. And who is this young lady? I am Ruby Mitchell, his daughter announced, extending her sand-covered hand with surprising formality. I am 8 years old, and I am in 3rd grade. We are building the biggest sand fortress ever. Would you like to help? Camilla removed her sunglasses, revealing warm brown eyes that Devon had only ever seen narrowed in concentration over computer screens or quarterly reports. To his utter astonishment, she smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her entire face. I would be honored, Ruby. It has been a very long time since I built a sand fortress. She glanced at Devon, and something passed between them, an understanding that this moment, however it started, was something different. Something neither of them had expected. As Camilla settled onto their blanket, and Ruby began enthusiastically explaining her architectural vision, Devon realized that his perfectly planned day of solitary father-daughter bonding had just taken an unexpected turn. His boss, the woman he had only ever seen in power suits delivering presentations, was sitting on his beach blanket, accepting a juice box from his daughter, and laughing at Ruby's description of fortress moats. The afternoon sun climbed higher, and Devon found himself watching Camilla interact with Ruby, seeing glimpses of a person he never knew existed beneath the professional exterior. Perhaps some accidents, he thought, were actually the universe's way of revealing what was meant to be discovered all along. The Monday morning after Devon's hands trembled slightly as he swiped his access card at Nextech's glass entrance. Monday morning. The weekend had ended with an exchange of pleasant goodbyes, Ruby hugging Camilla's legs before they parted, and Camilla ruffling his daughter's hair with unexpected tenderness. But now, in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the corporate world, Devon wondered if the beach encounter would be acknowledged or buried under professional protocol. The open concept office buzzed with its usual Monday energy. Developers clustered around standing desks, product managers reviewed sprint plans, and the espresso machine worked overtime. Devon made his way to his workstation, positioned near the windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. He had barely settled into his ergonomic chair when his computer pinged with a meeting invitation from Camilla. His stomach dropped. Private meeting, her office, 10 o'clock. No agenda listed. An unexpected gesture the next 2 hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Devon reviewed code, responded to emails, and tried unsuccessfully to focus on anything other than the impending meeting. At exactly 10 o'clock, he knocked on Camilla's office door. His palms sweaty despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Come in, her voice called out. Camilla sat behind her minimalist desk, her dark hair pulled back in its familiar professional style, wearing a charcoal blazer that screamed executive authority. But when she looked up, Devon caught something different in her expression. A softness around her eyes that had not been there before Friday. Please, sit. She gestured to the chair across from her. Devon, I wanted to discuss something that came to my attention over the weekend. Devon's heart sank. Here it comes. The awkward conversation about boundaries, or worse, a transfer to a different team. I realized, she continued, that in 3 years of working together, I knew almost nothing about your personal circumstances. I had no idea you were raising a daughter on your own. Devon blinked, caught off guard. I keep my personal life separate from work, he managed. I did not want anyone to think I could not handle my responsibilities. Camilla leaned back in her chair, studying him with those penetrating eyes that missed nothing. That is exactly the problem. We have created a culture where people feel they need to hide significant parts of their lives. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. After meeting Ruby and seeing what you manage every day, I have been reflecting on some changes we need to make. Shifting workplace dynamics over the following weeks. Devon watched in amazement as Camila implemented a series of reforms. The mandatory all-hands meetings moved from 6 o'clock to 3:30 in the afternoon. A new flexible scheduling policy allowed parents to work from home when children were sick. The break room was stocked with family-friendly snacks, and suddenly, photos of children appeared on desks that had previously displayed only company awards. But the most surprising change was personal. Camila began stopping by Devon's desk in the late afternoons, ostensibly to discuss projects. But their conversations inevitably drifted into more personal territory. She asked about Ruby's school, her interests, her challenges. Devon found himself opening up about the difficulties of solo parenting, the guilt he carried about working late, the exhaustion that had become his constant companion. One evening, as most of the office had cleared out, Camila appeared at his desk with 2 coffees from the expensive cafe downstairs. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" she asked. Devon gestured to the empty chair beside him, surprised by how natural her presence felt outside the formal structure of meetings. Discovering common ground. Ruby mentioned she is interested in robotics, Camila said, setting down the coffees. "My brother Josh teaches a weekend coding class for kids at the community center. It is free, and the kids love it. Would she be interested?" Devon stared at her, touched by the thoughtfulness. "She would be thrilled." "Thank you, Camila. That is incredibly kind." Camila wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, her gaze distant. "My mother died when I was 9, she said quietly. Josh was only 6. My father had to figure out how to be both parents, how to keep a business running, while making sure we knew we were loved. I watched him struggle with the same guilt I see in your eyes sometimes." Devon felt something shift in his chest. "I am sorry about your mother. That must have been devastating." "It shaped everything about who I became," Camila admitted. "I built this company partly to prove I could create something my mother would have been proud of, but also to have control over my time in a way my father never did. The irony is that I have failed spectacularly at that second goal." She laughed, but there was sadness in it. "I work more hours than he ever did, and I have no one waiting at home wondering where I am." Growing connection there, coffee conversations became a regular occurrence. Devon learned that Camila spoke fluent Spanish and Portuguese, that she had lived in Brazil for 2 years after college, that she played classical piano when she needed to think through complex problems. She learned that Devon had taught himself to cook after the divorce, that he and Ruby had a tradition of Friday night dance parties in their living room, that he dreamed of one day starting his own software consulting firm focused on work-life integration. The company family day arrived on a crisp October Saturday. Nextech had rented out a section of Lincoln Park, complete with food trucks, games, and activities for children of all ages. Devon watched Ruby immediately gravitate toward the robotics demonstration booth, where Josh was showing kids how to program small robots to navigate obstacle courses. He felt Camila's presence before he saw her. She had a quality about her now that made him hyper-aware whenever she was near. A magnetic pull he was trying very hard to ignore. "Your daughter has good instincts," Camila said, coming to stand beside him. "Josh says she is a natural programmer." Devon smiled, watching Ruby's face light up as her robot successfully completed the course. "She gets her logic skills from her mother, I think. I just provide the patient explanations and encouragement." "That sells yourself short," Camila said softly. "Ruby clearly adores you, and from what I have observed, you have given her something more valuable than any skill. You have given her security and unconditional love. Those are the foundations everything else is built on." Acknowledging the unspoken, Devon turned to look at Camila. Really look at her. In jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked more like the woman from the beach than the CEO who commanded boardrooms. "Have you ever thought about having children of your own?" he asked, then immediately wondered if he had crossed a line. But Camila did not seem offended. "All the time," she admitted, "but I convinced myself that my career had to come first, that I could not be both a good leader and a good mother." Watching you these past weeks has made me question that assumption. You are one of my best architects, and you are also clearly an exceptional father. Maybe it is not about choosing one or the other, but about having the courage to integrate both." Their eyes met, and Devon felt the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. He became acutely aware of how close they were standing, how her perfume smelled like jasmine, and something uniquely her. How much he wanted to reach out and tuck the strand of hair that had fallen across her face behind her ear. "Dad, look." Ruby's voice broke the moment. She ran toward them, her robot clutched in her hands. Mr. Josh said, "I can take this home and keep working on it." "Is that not amazing?" "That is incredible, sweetheart," Devon said, grateful for the interruption that had saved him from doing something potentially catastrophic, like kissing his boss in front of the entire company. But as the afternoon wore on, and he watched Camilla laugh with Ruby, help her debug her robot's programming, and share stories about learning to code herself as a child, Devon realized something fundamental had changed. This was not just respect or admiration anymore. This was something deeper, more dangerous, and infinitely more terrifying. He was falling for Camilla Reyes. And from the way she looked at him when she thought he was not watching, he suspected the feeling might be mutual. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Crisis and clarity. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Devon jerked awake, his heart already racing before his conscious mind registered the sound. Ruby's name glowed on his phone screen, but it was the school nurse's number. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Stephanie from Lakeview Elementary. I am calling about Ruby. She woke up with a high fever and has been vomiting. You need to come get her right away." Devon was dressed and out the door in under 5 minutes, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Ruby rarely got sick, and when she did, it was usually minor. But the nurse's tone had carried an urgency that frightened him. At the school's health office, he found his daughter pale and shivering despite the fever, her eyes glassy with illness. "Daddy, my stomach hurts so bad," she whimpered as he gathered her into his arms. The emergency room. Doctor diagnosed a severe stomach flu, complicated by dehydration. Ruby needed 4 fluids and monitoring for at least 24 hours, possibly for. Devon sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair, holding his daughter's hand as she drifted in and out of feverish sleep, and felt the familiar weight of solo parenting settle over him like a heavy blanket. There was no one to trade off with, no partner to send home for rest while he kept watch. Unexpected support at 6 a.m. Devon remembered with a jolt of panic that he was supposed to lead the product launch presentation for their biggest client at 10 o'clock. 6 months of work, $1 million contract, and he was sitting in a hospital room with no backup plan. His hands shook as he typed out a message to Camilla explaining the situation, apologizing profusely, offering to dial in from the hospital if they could postpone by a few hours. Her response came within minutes. "Do not even think about work right now. Ruby needs you. I will handle the presentation. Focus on your daughter." Devon stared at the message, overwhelmed by gratitude and something deeper. "But you do not know the technical details of the architecture," he typed back. "You built it, you documented it, and I have been reviewing your materials for weeks," she responded. "I have got this. Take care of your little girl. Call me when you know more." Revelations in vulnerability. Ruby's fever finally broke that evening, and the doctor cleared them to go home the next morning with strict rest instructions. Devon had just gotten his daughter settled on the couch with her favorite blanket when his doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he saw Camilla standing on his porch, holding several grocery bags. "I hope this is not intrusive," she said when he opened the door, looking uncertain in a way he had never seen. "But I thought you might need some help. I brought soup, crackers, electrolyte drinks, and some things for you to eat because I am guessing you have not been taken care of yourself." Devon felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Camilla, you did not have to do this. I wanted to," she said simply. "May I come in?" He stepped aside, suddenly aware of the chaos of his home, the scattered toys, the dishes in the sink, the laundry basket in the hallway. This was his real life, unfiltered and messy, and here was his CEO witnessing all of it. But Camilla did not seem fazed. She unpacked the groceries with efficient movements, heated soup, and even brought a bowl to Ruby on the couch. "Hey there, warrior princess," she said gently, settling beside his daughter. "I heard you have been fighting off dragons." Ruby managed a weak smile. "The dragons were winning for a while. But Dad said I am tougher than I look." Confessions under starlight. After Ruby fell asleep, Devon found Camilla in his kitchen, washing the dishes he had abandoned 2 days ago. "You do not have to do that," he protested. "I know," she said, "but I want to help, and I am good at dishes." It is meditative. They worked in comfortable silence, Devon drying while Camilla washed, moving around his small kitchen with surprising ease. Finally, Camilla spoke. "The presentation went perfectly, by the way." The client signed the contract, and the team celebrated. But all I could think about was whether Ruby was okay, whether you were okay. "Thank you," Devon said. "For everything. The presentation, coming here, just understanding. You have made these past months so much easier." Camilla turned to face him, her hands still wet from the dishwater. "Can I tell you something?" She did not wait for his answer. "When I saw you at the beach that day with Ruby, I felt something I had not felt in years. Envy, maybe, or longing. You had something real, something that mattered beyond quarterly earnings and product launches. And when our eyes met in that mortifying moment, I saw something in your expression that made me realize I had been hiding behind my work for a very long time." Crossing the bridge, Devon set down the dish towel, his heart pounding. "What did you see?" he asked quietly. "I saw someone who was fully alive," she said. "Someone who was present in his life, not just going through the motions. Someone who loved deeply, despite the risk of being hurt. And I wanted that. I wanted to feel that alive again." The space between them seemed to shrink without either of them moving. "Devon, I know this is complicated. I am your boss, there are company policies, and you have Ruby to think about. But I cannot stop thinking about you, about us. About the possibility of something more." Devon reached out and took her hand, marveling at how small it felt in his, how right. "I have been terrified to admit this," he said. "But I am falling for you, Camilla. Maybe I started falling that day on the beach, when you sat on our blanket and helped Ruby build sandcastles. Maybe it was during those coffee conversations when you shared pieces of yourself I do not think many people get to see. But it is real, and it is not going away." Camilla stepped closer, her free hand coming up to rest against his chest. "What do we do about it?" "We take it slow," Devon said. "We figure it out together. I will not risk Ruby's stability or your company's reputation. But I also will not pretend I do not care about you. So we navigate this carefully, honestly, and see where it leads." 6 months forward, the gymnasium of Lakeview Elementary hummed with excited energy as parents and students gathered for the annual science fair. Devon stood beside Camilla, their fingers intertwined, watching Ruby explain her robotics project to a panel of impressed judges. Her presentation was confident and clear, demonstrating how she had programmed her robot to assist with household tasks, specifically helping single parents manage multiple responsibilities at once. "Your daughter is remarkable," Camilla whispered, squeezing his hand. "She gets that from her dad," Devon replied, then added, "and from her future stepmom, who taught her that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around." Camilla leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture that still felt wonderfully new despite 6 months of dating. "Josh has been asking when we are going to make it official," she said. "He adores Ruby and keeps dropping hints about wanting to be an uncle." Devon turned to look at her, his heart full. "Is that what you want? To make it official?" Camilla met his gaze with those warm brown eyes that had first captured him on a windswept beach. "I want everything, Devon. I want weekend breakfast chaos and school pickups and helping with homework. I want Ruby to know she has another person who loves her unconditionally. I want to build a life with you. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect." Full circle as Ruby accepted her first place ribbon, her face glowing with pride. Devon thought about that August afternoon when an embarrassing accident had changed the trajectory of his life. He had been so afraid of being seen, of anyone discovering the exhausting reality behind his professional competence. But Camilla had seen all of it, the struggles and the strength, the vulnerability and the love, and she had chosen to stay. Later that evening, they returned to Harbor Point Beach, the same stretch of sand where their story had begun. Ruby ran ahead, already planning a new sand fortress, while Devon and Camilla walked hand in hand along the water's edge. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the lake breeze carried the promise of summer. Are you ever going to let me forget that mortifying first moment? Camilla asked, laughter in her voice. Never, Devon teased. It is our origin story, and it is perfect in its awkwardness. Besides, it taught me that sometimes the most embarrassing moments are actually the universe pushing us toward where we are meant to be. Camilla stopped walking and turned to face him, the fading sunlight catching in her dark hair. I love you, Devon Mitchell. I love your daughter, I love your terrible dad jokes, and I love the life we are building together. Devon pulled her close, feeling the rightness of her in his arms. I love you too, Camilla Reyes. Thank you for seeing past the professional facade to the overwhelmed single dad underneath. Thank you for building sandcastles with us. Ruby's voice called out across the beach, summoning them to help with her latest architectural vision. As they joined her on the sand, their hands covered in grit and their hearts full of hope, Devon realized that the best love stories were not the ones that started perfectly. They were the ones that began with authenticity, grew through vulnerability, and were built on the foundation of showing up, day after day. For the people who mattered most, sometimes an accidental glance changes everything. Sometimes embarrassment opens doors to connection. And sometimes, the family you build from unexpected moments becomes the greatest blessing of all. The Eon Dive, this story touched your heart. Remember that life's most beautiful chapters often begin with its most awkward moments. True connection requires vulnerability, and love often finds us when we stop hiding behind our carefully constructed facades.